Okay, we're good to go.
All right, I'll go first. Hi, I'm Brecca Giller. I teach 4th grade in Rush City Elementary School, and I teach reading, math, and all of the science for the grade.
I'm Shauna Grosky. I teach in Lake City, Minnesota, and I'm an LD special education teacher for the elementary grades. So I teach K through 6.
And I'm Natasha Fierst. I teach in Owatonna, Minnesota as a 1st and 2nd grade looping teacher.
All right, we're going to discuss chapter 11 first, which is the word recognition chapter. It's kind of like, to me, it felt like they really were trying to stress that this was like the foundation of the reading process, which was kind of on like page 229, which was right in the beginning.
Yeah, and I really liked how they kind of went through the alphabetic stages, or just in all of the different theories they talked about. They started with like how you learn at those younger grades, and then how it progresses through like the pre-alphabetic stage, the full alphabetic, and then the final stage. It kind of digested how those younger kids might perceive like the letters to the sounds to the words, and how it kind of grows on each other.
And I was really interested in the connectionist models more so out of all of the theories. That one really stood out to me. It kind of matched like my perspective in teaching, and just how they're using multiple parts with the phonological, orthographic, and semantic. And so like looking for patterns in words, and if they like can identify a pattern, then it triggers something, and then they can recognize that in other words, and then that helps them with the word recognition. And like, with the other theories, I was just like kind of like, what? I don't really understand that. So I thought that I made the most connection with that, and it was really interesting to read more about that.
I would definitely agree. I wrote some things about the connectionist theories, and that they link more with exposure that leads to deeper understanding. And I really felt like that's something that we're struggling with in our school right now. We just got our test score back, and it showed that vocabulary, because we changed curriculums, and we're having a deficit in vocabulary right now. That's our weakest strand. I'm trying to like use what I'm learning through all of this intervention stuff, and through this other class I'm taking with Patty. I don't know if you guys have ever had her before, but it's like how to give those interventions, and like focusing a lot on word recognition and vocabulary and things like that. And this just kind of reminded me of that, and that creating our own word part vocabulary system seems to be like the way that a lot of schools are going. Instead of like buying a curriculum, they're creating their own by using like word parts and meanings. And it's like part of that whole 4-part process model that's on page 231, as well as the strong phonological theory on page 237. So I'm trying to use what I've learned in these classes to convince our principal and our superintendent that maybe instead of spending money on a curriculum that everybody ends up not using and doing their own way anyway, that maybe we should just give money to teachers to create our own.
Yeah, we have a program at our school where the 6th graders are actually doing something kind of like that, where they developed their own curriculum, and they're using a lot of things that align with the phonological theory, the strong phonological theory, where they, like you were saying, piece apart the words. And in the beginning, it was really hard because some teachers were doing it one way and another teacher was doing it another way, and the kids were kind of lost, and it was really hard to align. And then as a special education teacher, it was really hard because the teachers sometimes didn't know for sure like where they were going next until they sat down and talked about it. So it's now that we've kind of established it and they know where they're at with it, it's been phenomenal. But it's just kind of those learning curves in that beginning where it was really struggling like to get everyone on board and administration on board. But I actually showed this to a lot of the 6th grade teachers, and they kind of looked through it, and one of my coworkers actually took this class, and so it was cool to like see what we're learning here apply to like what they're trying to implement in their classrooms.
Yeah.
And in first grade, phonics is super important, and we don't even have a curriculum that teaches phonics. So it's really frustrating that we're all kind of doing different things. And it's like, okay, come on, district, like we really need to get this going. This is a very fundamental skill to reading. And so it was nice to see, like with the Connectionist, like some of what I'm doing is actually, it's okay. It's actually good. So when I'm trying to come up with the stuff on my own, it was just like reading this was reassurance, like, okay, that's good that you can have them like work with the patterns of words, and then that could transfer over to other words, rather than teaching them, okay, if you see an E at the end of the word, it's going to change the vowel sound. More like the rule thing, where I try to get away from that more, because it doesn't always work, and then you see them get confused. Well, you said the bossy E makes this vowel, so just
Right?
instead
Yeah.
of yeah. So it was cool to get this perspective, and hopefully, like, you two are like seem to be doing awesome. Like, you're taking what you're learning from these classes and going like above, like, to your superintendent and trying to, address the need and say, look at this, like we should incorporate that more. So that's pretty cool.
I think though that I teach in a really small district, so like I only teach in a building where there are 2 or 3 sections per grade. So I know my superintendent and my principal on a first name basis. So that makes this a little bit easier, I would say. I think if I was in a bigger district, I wouldn't feel as comfortable doing that, I don't think. But it's very small town where I'm at.
Like, that kind of makes me nervous when you're like, oh, when you said that. But that's pretty, like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and my school's
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
No, sorry. My school's the same way. Like, the stuff we bring up is like at my special education coordinator is also our assistant principal. So like we'll sit down at a table every single Thursday morning, and we kind of hash out like what's going well, what's not going well, what can we improve upon, and things like that. And so that's when this type of stuff gets brought up. It's not like I really go above and beyond, you know what I mean? It's just, it gets brought up in conversation, and then I'm able to kind of use this as like a resource. And then kind of going back, when you were talking about the phonics and teaching the whole word instead of the rules, that works so well with my first grade students who have learning disabilities in the area of reading, because they get so confused when it's like for example, the I before E. Obviously, they're not learning that in first grade, but it's like that rule doesn't apply as often as we think it does, and so then they get so confused. They're like, "You told me this way," and they don't learn the same way, anyways. So these models are teaching like the whole word meanings, or applying it more so to like the real life situations or where they're at is been so helpful, rather than I always says or I always says I. Like they get so lost in that.
Like traditional. To get away from like all the traditional stuff, and that's hard with like veteran teachers. When you try to bring them ideas, they're like, no. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll just do it, but whatever. So,
yeah, I think that's pretty common found in buildings across the nation. I don't think that's anything new, and I think that's in every profession across the nation. And it's so hard with English, because English is such a mashup of so many different languages that it really doesn't have any like phonological sense to it, so to speak. One thing that I took that I thought was worth mentioning is the link between reading the word and understanding it, like the dual route theory that they talked about. You can almost see like some kids doing this like as they read, especially like some of my struggling readers that actually have to take that second. I see that in them a lot, and since I read that, I started really paying attention to that and trying to figure out how I can use that to my advantage when they read. So I'm still working on it.
That's okay.
I think even as adults, sometimes when we read, it's so natural for us that it's like you read and you apply that meaning as you're reading, that it's cool to see some of those students like work through it, and it kind of humbles us in a way to like slow down and think about what am I doing when I'm reading? Like, how am I processing this stuff? So it's interesting to see like how they make those connections without even really knowing what the words mean. They kind of sometimes develop their own strategies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How are we doing for time?
Sorry, I'm so new on this. I don't.
No, that's okay. I can.
Does it show? I mean, does it show when we started? I've been recording this whole time. That I know for sure.
I do not have a time on it either, but I know we've been going at least 7 minutes.
Okay.
Because the last time I looked when I thought maybe I should be keeping track of that. So do you guys feel like we're ready? Like we've hit the main things. Are you guys ready to move on to chapter 17?
Yeah, I think we kind of.
Okay. Yeah.
This is the chapter that I was like really into. Like I really felt like I could go and take it and apply it right away to something that I'm doing or make something better in my classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I really liked the table on, it was like the first table in the chapter 17:1. And it just kind of got you like me thinking like I already do some of those things, and then there's just more that I like, oh yeah, like, yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, so we have this really weird curriculum and it drives me nuts. And there's so much vocabulary and they pick out the vocabulary words that you should focus on. And I don't know where they get that. And then when I was reading like the end of the chapter, I think it talked a little bit about how when the author suggests you focus on that curriculum, it's for a reason. But I'm not really seeing that connection with the vocabulary that I'm supposed to teach with like that table 17:1. It doesn't really fit. So I'm like in a really weird like stage. I'm not really sure what to do with that. So, but that was one of my thoughts. But I really liked that table.
I'm with you. I don't know what curriculum you have, but I'm with you. Our word study program is like spelling, but it's supposed to be vocabulary too. But if you look at the words that are chosen, they're like the word parts are way too easy, and it's like ER or UR spellings or WAWO, like sounds more so. And then it's hard for them to make the connection because they're supposed to sort these words based on like similar meanings and stuff, but there isn't a lot of similar meanings. So they're getting all of these different categories for the words that are not really connecting or helping them understand. Like, I think it would be more beneficial to like teach like a root word or like a or a prefix or suffix and just have two groups and then just sort into those two groups and then work from there. And the definitions for some of these words are really easy. Like we had learner and teacher, and like for fourth graders, that's just way too easy. Most of them spell all of those words without
like a waste of time.
Yeah, I really feel like it was a waste of time. And have you guys ever heard of Beck's tiers of vocabulary?
Yes. That sounds familiar, but I probably wouldn't be able to tell you about it.
Well, it's from another class, so like it's from another.
Is it like the 3 different tiers
of like how you pick vocabulary? And so like the 17.1 table that you brought up, I thought it linked to that because the bottom tier is like learned through conversation, everyday word vocabularies. And then the second tier is used in academic content, but like in every subject. And then the top tier is domain specific. So like subtraction is probably only going to be used in math, But I've been trying to do better to pick those words. And my principal came into my room the other day and he's kind of been giving me free rein on my reading curriculum since I started this program. And I was using some of the words and he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, we're sorting words based off of the word parts. And he goes, what do you mean? Like, these are huge words. How, like, where did you get these words? Why did you decide on these words? And like, how are the kids figuring out the meanings of these words? And I was like, well, they all have some similar word part, and they're sorting them into groups, and then they use what they know about some of the words and figure out what that part of the word means, or what that root word or what that prefix or suffix means. And he sat and watched for a little bit, and the kids were like a little nervous. They're like, he left, and they were like, Mrs. Giller, like, were we not doing what we were supposed to be doing? He was in here for a really long time. And I was like, no, he just thought that what we were doing was really interesting. And he pulled me into his office afterwards, and he's like, you know, where did you get this? And I was just really glad that I had like some solid materials from authors that he had heard of before to support myself. And he was pretty impressed. So that kind of made me feel good.
That's super awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I really like the idea of teaching the parts like that, because like they use the example of like corporate and then like incorporate.
Can you guys hear me?
Corporation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
I'm guessing probably not.
No, well, it says her bandwidth is low. There, now I can see her moving.
Sorry, like, I don't know what's going on. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Shoot. I'm sorry. Like,
okay.
Something happened. I
That's
totally
okay.
missed your story about your
it
principal
was not important.
Oh,
It was not
yes,
important.
it was. Okay, hopefully this spot will be better.
There you go.
I'm sorry, you guys.
That's okay.
Oh, it's fine. And Beth is really understanding. She knows that that's how these things go.
Yeah.
Life. Okay.
We had a solid like 10 minutes with no interruptions. I mean, I think that's
we did.
good.
Yeah.
We're kind of talking about teaching words in like parts, like prefix and suffix, instead of teaching like those vocabulary words that aren't really important or that might be too easy. So you're kind of talking about how if you know what like brave means, and then you add like the lee on the end, you obviously know it's like bravely. So just using those different skills
yeah.
you already have to kind of build upon their knowledge.
Yeah, I really liked the part like about the semantic relationships and how, or relate, I don't know, whatever you want to refer to them. So like they all have like a common theme, so they go together, but they're not like completely similar to cause confusion. And that was like an aha moment for me, like, oh, that would really help me sort through the vocabulary I have now. Like, do they all have a common theme? Like, can they be understood together? So I was really curious to start, or not curious, but kind of excited to start using that mindset more when.
Did she cut out?
Yeah, I think we lost her again.
Oh no, she was really doing good.
No.
I wonder if she, oh darn it. Well, while we wait for her, I'll just, I had one thing that I thought could be really powerful. I'm trying to do the whole, like, give kids more responsibility thing, making it more of a child-centered classroom. The challenge of letting students choose words that they want to study, and maybe like do like a root word report, like giving them the option to choose like a root and then find all those words and figure out what it is, something that interests them, or just like taking a passage and having them like select words that they thought were important that they could study and figure more about. Maybe I wasn't they didn't go too in depth on like options on how to do that, but I kind of found that interesting and thought it might be worth looking into.
I thought that was interesting as well. My question kind of, I guess, to you, because you're a classroom teacher, is how do you kind of funnel them down so they're not out there looking for words that are I don't either, like if they're really into monster trucks, like how do you make it so it's still academic but still incorporating their interests in their, would you, like you were saying, just do one passage and make it all about that one passage, or would you try and incorporate their interests into it?
I that's such a hard question because I still don't, like, the book didn't give really a lot of information about that. But one thing could be like, we have like leveled readers, and in the leveled readers, they have like content words that go with the passage. So then they could pick maybe a passage that they want to focus on. You know, you could give them options for like whatever level they're at, and then they could pick words that are content words, meaning that words that if they didn't know what they meant, they couldn't understand the passage. We kind of do that on a daily basis when we do our readings. We go through and we echo read, I read one, then they read it back to me, try to match my expression, and then when we're through the story, they read it through again in their head, and they pick out words that are either really long, meaning like multi-syllable words, or have like root words that they hadn't seen before, or something that if they didn't know what it was, it would make it really hard to understand the passage, and we talk about why it's important. This is really like the first time I've done that with our reading curriculum, so I really won't know how effective that is until we test again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of trial and error. I'm just going with it.
Sounds like it would be more student-centered, like you were saying, though, and they're more responsible for what they're learning, so it's kind of on them, which is super cool.
Yeah, and I'm trying to like figure that out. I went from having a class of 20 kids on average to now I have 30 kids on average. Because we had a lot of cuts. So that whole child-centered classroom is a little bit harder when you have more kids. So I'm just trying to figure it out.
Perfect. Okay, so I just have something that popped up, and it said my free time limit is 40 minutes. So I don't think we've done going that long, but I have 10 minutes left, just so you guys kind of know.
Oh yeah, I saw that too. Okay. But it says
did you upgrade?
Upgraded. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, now, yeah. Okay, now we're unlimited.
But we started at 7:37, and it is now 7:54. So I don't know if we want to wrap up, or were there any more things, Natasha, that you wanted to add?
Yeah. I just kind of have a question for you guys. Like when the words are too easy, and like in the book, it kind of talked about how more than likely there's kids who are already familiar with those words. Do you guys have any good strategies that you use to kind of get an understanding of what they already know? Or do you just, I don't know, like just roll with it? I mean, there's always going to be those kids who are like, oh, I already know this word, or I already know this word. Like, is there like, I don't know, they talked about, I can't remember the terminology they used. They had like a vocabulary. You know what I'm referring to?
I know what you're yeah. Like kind of like their ownership of the word.
Yeah, and kind of like shoot. Let me see if I can find it quick.
I know that for me, I obviously don't really have that problem because I'm a special education teacher. So most of my students are obviously struggling readers, so vocabulary is not a strong suit for them. But I know that when they do master a word, it's exciting for the students in the class who already knew that word and that are kind of like the higher level students. I try and have the higher level students become the teachers, so then they have more ownership of the words that maybe they have mastered. And I make sure my students at least have some sort of basic knowledge of the word. But I mean, that's just kind of mine in the classroom teacher. That's the way she does it, is she gives them more ownership of the word by allowing them to be like the teacher for those other students. But I don't know if that's really what you're looking for, but that's kind of what we do with our special education and the higher level students.
I'm sorry, when I moved, I lost my page and now I can't.
That's okay. I kind of go by like a lot of, we use map data to kind of tell us everything. And if you know how to use the map data, like you log in, and our first grade has just started using map data. I know that not a lot of other schools do yet. But when you do, because eventually they're going to go all the way down to first grade, when you do, you can log in there and see like what level of vocabulary they're at. So that can be super informational.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting because it would just be nice to like get an understanding. And sometimes I'm so surprised about like what they do know, and it's like, what? Well, how do you know that already? And but yeah, okay. Well, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think with first graders, it's like they come to you, and like kindergarten, they come to you and some of them have like tons and tons of words because they're from homes that their parents like discuss a lot of ideals and things with them, and they're exposed to a lot of things, and their families go out and experience these things all the time. And some families just don't have that opportunity. So I think it's a lot harder for a first grade teacher to be able to assess that wide of a range, because by fourth grade, a lot of them have caught up and covered some of that gap. So I guess they don't have the best answer. I wish I could help.
No, it's okay. No, but I think that just has to do with like more research and stuff like that. And then also when they were addressing about vocabulary, whether we should be choosing words that are closer to their student knowledge or further removed, I kind of spun in circles there, and I was, okay, so are they telling me to pick words that are closer to their student knowledge, or are they telling me that it's, you should pick them that they have no idea, or like they don't have any idea on what they would be? Did you guys get a clear answer on, like, I don't know. Sorry, it's probably so stupid.
Well, no, but that part of the text was really confusing because it's not like a book. It's, you know, it's a textbook on research that is written by people that have had 30 years in the reading field.
Right. I know. I'm like, I need so much more time to digest this stuff. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, well, I'm not sure. So do I do this or do I not? But maybe it's me that has to go back and read it over and try to put that together in my mind. But I'm just curious if you guys did that.
But I think some of I took it the same way too, where it's like if it's aligned with their student knowledge, then they would connect with it more. But it's they want to teach that because they already know it. And then the things that are removed, like I was kind of the same as you, where they were saying like you almost should teach both. Like it was a hard thing to understand.
I think there's a happy medium. Like I think because I definitely feel like, Natasha, like you felt like how they really didn't give a clear answer. You kind of had to infer what they were trying to get at. And I think happy medium is just kind of the way to go. And if you can maybe take some of those words that they're familiar with and then connect them to words that they have no idea that they are, like, you know, the word tiny, but then they could, I watched this video a while ago, I think it was for the other class I'm taking, but they sorted words that all had to do with tiny, microscopic, small, and then they went all the way up to like huge, large, and gigantic. And they had to order the words from like which was the teeniest, tiniest word meaning to the largest word meaning. So they like connected them. So that some of these words like gigantic and enormous and microscopic, it gave them, even though they had no idea what those words were before, it gave them a connection to familiar words.
Right, because they saw the relationship, so I bet that helped them. Good. So if they're really going to need it and you know that they have no idea what it is, it would probably be good to teach it to them. But if, Awesome. That was my question, but I don't really have anything else.
Yeah, I think we covered some pretty good material from those 2 chapters, I felt.
With this, can you go back and watch it? Like if I wanted to go back so I could hear your what you're doing in your classroom, I was really interested in that. Can I go back and watch this, or is it only whoever recorded it? I don't know.
I don't know that.
Okay.
I can email it to you.
Okay.
Once I
That'd be
figure it out.
awesome.
Yeah, because I'll upload it to D2L and do all of that, and then I'll just email it to both of you. That way we all have it. If that sounds
Cool.
And like if you guys want to continue to talk, we can stop the recording and then we can just continue to talk if you have like more questions.
Okay. So I will go ahead. Do we need to do like a closing, do you think, or just kind of?
The last time we were just kind of like, all right, we got all our points and we're good.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.
Okay.